Jazakallah khair. Our brother and Al-Ustad Tariq Brohi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he has asked a pertinent question regarding the hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he called Hassan, فقام الحسن بن علي يمشي وفي عنقه السخاب, that Ali bin Hassan as a young boy, as a young child, that he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and around his neck was a beaded necklace. Now, him having a beaded necklace around his neck as a child, as something that maybe he plays with or something that they put around his neck, then this was by way of decoration, by way of beautification. To say that this was some sort of taweez or ta'weed, some sort of amulet that he had around his neck, is an exaggeration, and it is in fact an interpolation. It is to add information to the hadith that is not present in the hadith. In fact, there is no hadith that is authentically reported from Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that states that any of the children that they wore any of these types of amulets or ta'weed or anything similar to that. It is not reported from them. Tama'im, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the tamima, it is shirk to hang a amulet or any form of protective necklace or armband. Like some of the people you see wrapping ropes around their arms with a pouch, and inside of the pouch there are some words that are written, either du'as or ayat from the Quran or numbers or symbols or other than that. Then all of this, it is forbidden. If it is the words of Allah, the book of Allah, so they have taken Surah Al-Fatiha for example, and they put it in a pouch around the neck, whether it is an adult or a young boy, then we don't say this is shirk, we say this is bid'ah. Why? Because this is the words of Allah, so we don't say it is shirk. We say it is bid'ah. Why is it bid'ah? Because a bid'ah is any deed or action that is done by a person for which there is no proof from the book of Allah, nor from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, nor from the ijma'. So if there is no proof from the book of Allah that you can hang amulets around your neck, even with the words of Allah, because never do we say about the words of Allah by hanging the words of Allah around your neck, that is shirk in itself, because it's not shirk. These are the words of Allah. How can the words of Allah be shirk? But it is bid'ah, meaning that it is innovated. Innovated, meaning that wasn't done by the Prophet ﷺ, and it wasn't done by the Sahaba, nor was it commanded by the Prophet ﷺ, nor did he allow it. In fact, he said the opposite. He said the opposite. Do not hang anything that is hung around the animals, meaning the cattle, that the people used to hang it around the necks of the animals in the times of Jahiliyyah as a form of protection. Or anything that is hung around any person or child, the Prophet ﷺ commanded it to be cut off. For indeed, it will not bring you any benefit, it will only bring you harm, as occurs in some narrations. So all of this is forbidden, and it is clearly forbidden. And there are chapter headings in Kitab al-Tawheed of Shaykh al-Islam, chapter headings with ayat and hadith that clearly forbid and are far from the Sahaba that forbid the hanging of amulets. So here, to say that what Hassan was wearing was an amulet, then it is not correct to say that. So that was one side. We don't say it is a bid'ah. We don't say rather it is shirk. We say it is a bid'ah to use the Quranic ayat. However, if a person is hanging something around his neck, and by way of that he's calling upon other than Allah, so maybe there is something in there that calls upon a jinn. So some people believe that there is a jinn in a certain cave, in a certain part of Yemen, and they will call upon that jinn and they will say, Ya Fulan, bring this child, or bring this car, or bring this animal, or bring my wife or my mother protection. And they wrap it up and they seal it up and they wrap it into a leather pouch, and then they put it on the arm or the neck. Then that is shirkul akbar, because that is to actually to take refuge and to seek refuge from the jinn or from the ones in the graves and so on. So that is something that is clearly shirk, and it is not allowed, because now they have removed themselves from trusting and relying in Allah to a jinn or to a dead one in his grave. As for people that they use symbols and numbers and so on, then all of that is just basically fraud. They're frauding the people with symbols and numbers, and that is from the habits of the Jews, because the Jews, what they used to do with the Torah is that they used to turn the letters of the Torah, the words of the Torah, into numerical formulations. So they used to take chapters of the Torah, which is what the Jews today refer to as the Torah, and they used to make numerical formulations. So they used to say, this chapter of the Torah has this numerical formulation, 6, 8, 4, 3, and then a line, and 4, 2, 8, and they used to make a formulation as representation of something in there. But in reality, they were playing with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what Muslims started doing from the deviant ones, that they started making numerical formulations of the Quran as well. Like, for example, if I was to say to anyone from a Muslim living in India or Pakistan, what does 786 mean? There you go. Anything that, if you say to a Muslim living in, obviously in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait or in Egypt, 786, say what? 786, is that your door number? Your phone number? What is it? They don't know. This is a numerical formulation innovated. And they have other numerical formulations. And in there may be, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, that the one who is writing it, he has some connection with the devils from the jinn. He has some communication with them. And he throws in their numerical formulations and numbers and adiyah. And the words of Allah, they write them backwards or upside down, or one is right way around or one is the wrong way around. And then they introduce numbers into it and they wrap it up and they blow on it, like the blowing of the magicians. And then they give it to your child. You're going to put that around your child's neck?
They write names of the angels as well.
Yeah, well, they write all types of stuff on there. Jinns, names of jinn. And they say, and they think that those jinn are actually protecting them. They might even be deceived into thinking that those jinns are malaika. So they give jinns, and they say, no, it's not a jinn, it's an angel. But it's a jinn, and they are calling upon devils, and some of them know, and some of them don't know. So what did the Prophet ﷺ do? Cut the door. And now when you come into places like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, even if you go to places like Iraq, Egypt, you find them wearing amulets. Some men came to the Prophet ﷺ, 9 men or 10, and they came to the Prophet ﷺ to take the shahada and take the bay'ah. So he took it from all of them except one. He said, Ya Rasulullah, why? He said, because he's wearing an amulet. Take it off. So when he took it off, only then did the Prophet ﷺ take his oath, take his pledge of allegiance. Now, many of the people in society regard these as minor things, but they are not minor things because these are actual fundamentals. They are not like, that we differ over whether we can drink water standing up or drink water sitting down. Because that is a fiqh position. No doubt it is afdal and it is better always when you drink water, drink sitting down. Because the Prophet ﷺ used to drink water sitting down and he forbade in a narration. So some of the scholars say it was makruh, that it is something disliked to drink water standing up. Right? So this we can differ over. The narration of Ali radiallahu anhu, when they said to Ali, and he was drinking water standing up, they said, why do you drink water standing up? Indeed, the Prophet ﷺ, that he forbade drinking water standing up. He said, why? By Allah, I saw with my own eyes the Prophet ﷺ drinking water standing up. So now the Sahaba differ over this issue of water. So that is a amr ijtihadi. This is the difference of opinion amongst the Sahaba. There's no difference in amulets. This is a fundamental of the religion because this is related to your connection and your ibadah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that whomsoever hangs something around his body, then he has committed shirk. Major issue. Whoever hangs something upon his body, meaning an amulet, whoever hangs a tamima, meaning something of protection for himself, then he has committed shirk. Hanging the Quran, then we don't say it's shirk because the Prophet ﷺ wasn't talking about hanging the Quran. There's a narration in Abu Dawood that some of the people of bid'ah they try to use, that one of the Sahaba, that he wrote some ayat of the Quran and he placed it upon the body of his children at night. That narration is weak. Now what do we say about weak narrations? You can't go to a weak narration and reject all of these authentic narrations, Bukhārī and Muslim, Abu Dawood, narration after narration forbidding hanging of amulets and hanging of these tama'im and hanging of ta'aweez. He forbade them all. And to get rid of all of those authentic narrations that run into dozens and dozens of hadith, reject all of those hadith because of one weak hadith. that's when you know that a person is following hawa. You know that a person is following his desires because he just wants something to support his position. So therefore, using this hadith, that Hassan had a necklace of beads around his neck, to say that he was wearing a tamima, it's not correct to say that. Barakallahu feekum. And plus he was a baby. So children, they have a hukum of toys. You don't expect a grown woman of 23 years old to be playing with dolls. But for children, they can play with dolls and teddy bears and whatever else. It's allowed for children, but not for grown people. For children, the rulings are slightly like if your child is musbil, 5 years old, say, what are you doing? Raise your trousers above your ankles. For the children, doesn't apply. If your daughter is 6, 7, 8 years old and she hasn't reached the age of puberty, you can't say to her, "Why you walk around without hijab on?" and you hit her. No, you don't hit her. Because the ahkam of the Sharia are not obligated upon her at that age. So for the children, the rulings are different than they are for adults. And of course, a grown man is not allowed to wear, jewelry and so on, except the ring. Except the ring. He's allowed to wear a ring because Prophet ﷺ wore a ring. As for the rest of the jewelry, like a man wearing an anklet, ajib. Or a man wearing a bracelet, because they think, nowadays, but you see it. Man wearing a bracelet, why are you wearing a bracelet? Because it looks nice. Well, why do you wear an anklet? Maybe that looks nice. Say, no, that's feminine. So how is that masculine and that's feminine? Men don't wear. This is not from the behavior of men to wear bracelets or to wear necklaces or to wear earrings.
There's a lot of people wearing bangles in Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen that shit.
Those steel bangles.
Yeah.
Steel, that's from the Sikhs. That's one of the 5, the Qara. Yeah, all of that is haram from 2 aspects. Number 1, 3 aspects. Number 1, it is resemblant of an amulet. Number 2, it is imitating the kuffar. Number 3, it is imitating the women. From all 3 angles, it is haram. Kuffar, why do you want to wear the... because it's imitation of the Hindus as well, because they wear bands around there. We are Muslims. We should have our own Islamic identity. We don't need anybody else's. Allah has blessed us with Islam. We don't need anything else. And whatever is in the culture of our people, if Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Morocco, that doesn't oppose the Sharia, then there's no harm at all. So for example, the clothing that we're wearing, whatever, the type of wrap around the head that you wear, or the trousers of the Turks, or the white trousers of the Syrians. And all of that is allowed. Why? Because there's no contradiction between that and the Sharia. Anything in the custom that does not contradict the Sharia, then we have no problem with it, because this is the urf of the people. This is the urf of the people, and the urf of the people we have no problem with, unless it contradicts the hadith. If it contradicts the hadith, you can take yourself and your urf and put it where it belongs, in the trash can, right? But the hadith, not that you go belong in the trash can, but the urf belongs in the trash can, all right? Because that custom, if it is not supported by Islam or Islam contradicts it, then what do you put forward? If a person comes along and he says, well, in our customs in Pakistan, when a woman dies, we lock her up and tell her to shave her head. Say, no, you should be locked up and your head should be shaven as a punishment, not hers. She's in mourning. A mourning period is 4 months and 10 days. She doesn't have to shave her head. We're not Hindus. We don't imprison her, but she does stay in her family home. And she does not leave for 4 months and 10 days. And she does not beautify herself. And all her relatives help her if she needs anything and so on. And if she needs to go to the hospital or to the doctor, she's allowed to go and come back. But we do not behave like the Hindus. Or like the Jews, when a woman is in menstruation, they won't even touch a utensil that she's touched. They'll give her a private room and they don't even go near her or even talk to her. So that custom has got nothing to do with Islam. Aisha said, radiyallahu anha, when his wives were on menstruation, the Prophet ﷺ would do everything with them except the actual act of intimacy. But everything else he would do. He would kiss them, embrace them, so on and so forth, play with them, but he would not actually have the relationship, the intimate relationship itself. This is Islam. Islam doesn't need, Islam is so powerful in its own innate culture and its own, traditions, that there is nothing that can come against Islam except that Islam overpowers it. because it's rooted in wisdom and revelation from Allah. There is no custom of the people, whether in marriage or divorce or death. Someone dies and we have to do a big gathering for the people and feed 45 families that have come to mourn. The Prophet ﷺ didn't allow that type of mourning to take place. He didn't allow that you gather the people after someone has died and then you do what they call them, the matam or whatever they call it, right? So they come and then you have 100 families sitting in the house of the person's family who has died, of the deceased family's house, and they sit there for 3 days. They take out all like Shaykh Al-Albani said, Rahimahullah, in Ahkam al-Janaiz, he said what they do is they take out the furniture of the house and they put it outside. And all of the people, they gather in the house and then they feed them and whatever. Where's this from the hadith of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam? In fact, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to say that we used to consider the gathering of the people for mourning to be from wailing. The wailing which Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade. In a hadith he said, they are not from us who tear their pockets and slap their faces and call out with the calls of Jahiliyyah. They are not from us. Mourning, first and foremost, should be done we don't care about culture. And it's hard in a country like this, or in Muslim societies, to say, this is the hadith. They say, oh, what we've been doing for the last 50, 60 years, for generations. You say, well, you've been doing wrong, because it's just one person following another. Here's the hadith. Look, what do you want me to tell you? Here's the hadith. Say, well, we don't want that hadith. What do we do now? Can't do anything. Here's the hadith. We don't want that hadith. We're going to do what our forefathers did. What can you do now? You're just patient, make dua, and go on your way. And you hope that Allah will guide them one day. But as for us, no, we don't do that. Barakallahu feek.